ERG mode or no ERG mode?
I'll start with this one. I would say anything under zone 6 is ERG mode on. But like sprints, no way. I've tried sprints on ERG mode. They're awful. Don't do sprints on ERG mode.
Interesting. And
No,
Hayden,
no ERG mode.
No ERG mode? Oh,
no, absolutely not. Just because I used to use it a lot, okay? But like you got to learn the gears and everything, and I like personally I like how it feels without ERG mode, and it makes you push through it more and like learn different cadences, and I don't know. I just think that you're better off without ERG mode, personally.
You're listening to Endurance Unlimited, a TrainingPeaks podcast for athletes and coaches, no matter what you're training for. Dial in those workouts with deep insights and cutting-edge science from the most prominent voices in the endurance and hybrid sports world.
I'm Cody Stephenson, head of education here at TrainingPeaks. I have two guests today, Zach Nehr and Hayden Pucker, better known as Farm Watts. Zach is the head of Nehr Coaching, as well as a freelance writer and elite rider in virtual, gravel, and road racing. And he is Hayden's cycling coach. Hayden is a professional cyclist who started his cycling career by riding 100 miles every morning before work, and now is about to head to Esports Worlds. On this episode, we talk about Hayden's intro to esports and how he and Zach refine training and strategies for virtual racing. Zach, you were just on the podcast, and so people are hopefully a little bit familiar with you, but let's start with another quick introduction from you.
Thanks, Cody. Yeah, it's good to be back on the pod. So my quick intro is I'm a cycling coach, a freelance writer in the cycling space, and an athlete myself. So I mainly focus on Esport and gravel cycling now. I have an extensive background in road cycling, and I studied exercise science in college. So that's kind of my background as a coach. And a lot of my articles revolve around training science and cycling, kind of race analysis, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we'd be remiss to not point out that Zach also helped us. He did the whole thing. We just published it. A coaching esports course at TrainingPeaks University, if anybody wants to get into coaching esports since it's booming. And then our new guest, and probably the focus of this episode, is Hayden. So yeah, tell us about yourself.
So I'm Hayden Pucker, also known as Farm Watts. I'm a landscaper and esports cyclist and a little bit of gravel. I started with gravel and then kind of transitioned to esports in the last couple of years. And yeah, I like to do hard workouts and big watts. It's my thing.
Not overcomplicating the whole bike racing thing.
No.
So you said you started with gravel, but I've read a little bit of your origin story. How did you actually start training? Like your first season of training sounded pretty interesting.
So I kind of got into cycling. So I did Taekwondo back before COVID, and I did that a lot. Like I did online school for 2 years, so I could travel around and compete in that. And then I basically, COVID shut down the sport, and I bought a bike, and then immediately did like a 50-mile ride with my mom, and then 100-mile the next weekend. And then I just got really hooked on that. Like I got like such a dopamine dump from riding so much that I wanted to do it all the time. So on one of the rides I got a flat tire, and I rode the rim to the bike shop, bought my tarmac that I race on now, actually. And after that, I started riding 100 miles every single day. Like usually 50 before work, 50 after work, getting up at like crazy times, like 2, 3 a.m. And then in the winter, I got Zwift, and that really kind of elaborated that even worse. I just started riding 4 hours a day all the time, had more free time because I wasn't landscaping all the time. And then, yeah, the addiction just kind of grew and became just how many miles did I do? Every weekend, I would try to go farther and farther. I would do 200, 300-mile rides on the weekends, 100 miles at 1 a.m. before work. And I built up this massive aerobic fitness. And then what happened was someone connected me to Robbie Ventura, who was an ex-pro out of Chicago. And he lab tested me with like no structured training at all. I was just doing zone 2, going for KOMs as my my form of intensity. And I had like an FDP of over 400 watts initially. So he kind of opened me up, got me invited to like the Olympic Training Center for like a track camp. And then I met more people. And then I had my first coach, Zach Nehr, who gave me like some structure, but I wouldn't really follow him. Like he'd tell me to do like 2 hours, and I would like do an extra 2 hours after the workout, or I'd just continue always do more volume. I was always trying to get at least 25 hours a weekend. And then yeah, it's kind of how that all happened. I just tried road racing a little bit. Wasn't ever good at crits, didn't have the experience, and eventually I met Zach at Road America race where he did 244 miles in 12 hours. And I had COVID when I did it. I got sick and I got second place to him. And then ever since then, I kind of would follow him on Strava, and I'd be like, man, I want to do what he's doing. That's cool. But I never could figure out how to do that, how like to get into esports. So
this is a really common coach experience, I think. Zach, you can confirm this, that if you end up in the same race with one of your athletes and you beat them, they just can't give it to you. Like he had COVID, he probably had slower wheels, his brake was probably rubbing. So just so coaches and athletes out there know that. But then the other thing I want to kind of like focus on with what you just said is, so you had some strength background from Taekwondo, you're a landscaper. So like
yes,
one box checked. You're obviously pretty motivated. You're doing huge volume, a little bit of natural talent. So high threshold, but that wasn't enough. Like a lot of athletes would think like, oh, if I could just train all the time, I would get good. But there was still something else to unlock. It sounds like between Robbie, the Olympic Training Center, and then Zach. Is that kind of like what both of your experience was like even all this like volume and motivation wasn't quite enough? There was more to get from you.
it was funny. Like at first I got into cycling, and my only objective was to see how far I could ride. I got this big kick out of how far I could push myself. I loved the feeling of pain. I loved suffering. I wanted to suffer for as long as I could all the time. Any way I could do that, I would do. So that's where I got into like gravel and stuff. And then through like Zach and Zach Nehr and like both the Zachs and coaching, I found that I could experience the same gratification by pushing myself to complete exhaustion on intervals in like shorter races. And I didn't need to necessarily ride my bike for 12 hours to get that same feeling. So the same mindset I have now as I did back then. It's kind of like, I just want to push myself to as far as I can possibly go. I want to suffer, and I want to feel the pain because that's what I like.
So
Yeah,
Zach, what was your perspective? What did you see in him on this day that he got second to you because he had COVID?
It's these are, I would say these are great things to hear as a coach, because with athletes, especially really high level athletes, it can be really hard to get them to kind of hit their full potential, especially through workouts and the high intensity stuff. A lot of athletes, even at the highest level, there's so much mental burnout when you're training that much and training that hard. Whereas with Hayden, he's always saying, give me a harder workout. Give me something I can't complete. Give me something that is going to push me to the point of exhaustion and then past that. And I remember just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I gave him this ramp test sort of workout that I thought, there's no way he's going to finish this. It's way too hard. And then he texted me after the ride. He's like, I did the whole thing. There's just these levels to Hayden and this training that is so unique for me as a coach, where he still has so much potential. I mean, he's been training for a couple of years now, and thousands of hours of training. Like, he was doing so much volume at the beginning, and now it's really more about fine tuning that high intensity and those race levels of intensity. Because when he was doing that super high volume, there was a little tiny bit of intensity sprinkled in there with the KOMs, but there wasn't a lot of those 600 watt, 700 watt intervals, which for his power profile, that's what he needs to stay at the front of these races. And so, yeah, you could throw him into a pro crit. He could ride the front for an hour, but he could never break away. And that was something that we really worked on with road and gravel. And then for Esport cycling too, is he has the engine to always be there, but how do we help him make the winning breakaway, or how do we help him win?
That's kind of what I wanted to ask next, is as a casual coach and exercise science degree, myself and a lot of coaches are kind of in a similar boat. They would see a guy like Hayden, say like, okay, he's got the mental toughness to do high volume. He's got the motivation to do high volume. He's got the physical ability that results from doing high volume. And so a lot of coaches and athletes would say like, let's lean into that. Let's like capitalize on that. Let's like, you're going to win Unbound. Let's move on to the Unbound XL. Let's do all these huge gravel races. It seems so counterintuitive to then say like, hey, let's try esports. Like what made you decide that? Is because you'd been dabbling in it, or did you see some spark, or is it just like you like to do everything? So let's figure it out. Like, yeah, was it physical? Was it psychological? Was it just pragmatic? You live in Wisconsin, so you're on the trainer all the time anyway.
I got into esports after 2 really bad Unbound experiences. I think it was. Basically, I wanted to be a pro gravel racer and do ultra and stuff, but I haven't raced a lot really. Like I could probably count like 20 maybe top level races besides like some like Cat 4 crits or whatever. But I haven't done a lot of racing, and I never really learned how to race well handling my bike. I've never been good at that. So I would spend all this money dollars to go to like say Unbound, and then I would crash out in mile 5. And it's demoralizing. It's hard to sacrifice the time and the money to do something when I feel like I'm going nowhere in the sport. So that's kind of why I switched to esports. I kind of had this decision I made. I was like, okay, this isn't working anymore. I wanted to stay home and be able to work more, have more time, and focus my ambitions into something that I can do and achieve, but only train 12 hours a week and not travel. That was kind of like why I switched.
And Zach, did that sound crazy, or did you see like a kind of a blank canvas of like, yeah, we can up the shorter, higher intensity end of this guy's power curve and he'll exceed there? Or were you a little wary at first?
At first, I was definitely skeptical because you see this rider that has this huge aerobic engine and they're really good at holding that steady power for a long time. But I'd never seen Hayden do like 2 or 3 minutes all out. I had no idea what his potential was for that sort of thing. So to jump into esport, I knew what the requirements were like to succeed at that level. And I truly did know if he had that just because I hadn't seen it before. I don't think he had really tested himself to those levels. It was one of those things where when we first started working together and I was giving him 40s, 20s and 30s and 3 to 5 minute kind of those all out type of VO2 max efforts, it was almost like he was setting power PRs once or twice a month because he had just never really done that before. And we had no idea where his ceiling was with that. I think, back then, I don't even think he was over maybe 550 watts for 5 minutes. And now he can do that for 12, 13 minutes on a good day. So it's one of those things where he was improving very quickly and we kind of had no idea where that ceiling was. And I would say now we still don't know where that ceiling was. He's definitely still improving with that shorter duration power. And especially because on the indoor trainer, the mechanics of that are so unique. It's not like outside where it's really punchy. It's a higher cadence and in and out of the saddle. Whereas on the trainer, Hayden loves to do 60 to 65 RPM, maybe 70 at the highest, and just grinding out his massive gear, whether it's 300 watts or 700 watts. He has this unique physiology that I don't think I've ever seen before, where I would give him these intervals and he's just able to hold 65 RPM at 600 watts for like 5 minutes, which, I mean, he's literally broken trainers before. I don't think they've ever been tested to that level. And to just see that potential, to see that still growing is something where I don't really know where his potential is in esport. And it's really, really exciting to be a part of that journey and to see him keep improving to these power numbers that I've never even seen before.
So you kind of alluded to it, but yeah, I want a little more nitty gritty. What kind of workouts were you doing? You mentioned 30, 30s, 40, 20s. Like what was your like plan? What specifics were you doing to like start making a little bit of a transformation?
I would say at the beginning, it was definitely shorter intervals. So 3, 4, and 5 minute intervals, probably a lot of those, because I knew that his aerobic engine was so strong. It was the shorter term power that needed the most work. So really working on that explosiveness and kind of building from there. Like nowadays, he does more 8, 10, 12-minute blocks, even if it's 30-30s, like 3 by 10 minutes of 30-30s. At the beginning, we definitely weren't doing that. It was more 3 by 4 minutes of 30-30s, 3 by 5 minutes, and really working on those power zones that he wasn't really touching before. So yeah, that 600-700 watt zone for him is kind of where he needs to be to follow the attacks in these pro level esport races. So at the beginning, it was a lot of that short stuff, and then kind of building that over time, and then also altering that for kind of the training and racing period that he was in. So if there was a goal race coming up, kind of altering it around that. So coming into Worlds last year, we were definitely doing more world specific workouts. And then throughout the year, kind of depending on if he has like a gravel racing up, maybe some longer tempo stuff. Whereas if it's like the winter, it's the middle of winter in January, it's just esport focused and that's it.
How was that transition for you, Hayden? Like, you'd obviously scratched some psychological itch with big volume, long-term suffering. Did it feel like you weren't doing enough at first, or did you just up the intensity so much that you were able to like get that satisfaction in a third of the time?
It was hard. Like I would say it was much worse. Like I liked it more. I grew to like it more. At first, I remember like the first ever real workout he gave me was after Unbound, because I started with him 2 weeks before the first time I did the Elite 200, and that
Good
first week
timing.
back,
Coaches love that.
it happened. But so yeah, he didn't change my training much before that. But after Unbound, we got back, took an easy week, and the first workout he gave me, I remember it. It was 30 15s at like 550 watts, and it was like 3 times like 10 or something at that, and it killed me. Like I was on the ground in my garage afterwards, on the floor, like dry heaving. I was like, this is horrible, and that was enough. Like I was like content with that, and it was good. And basically every week he did this thing where like he'd give me a workout and I would like borderline fail it, and then in 2 more weeks he'd give me the same workout again and it'd feel easy. And that kind of like that's how I progressed all summer long leading up to Worlds, and it just slowly became easier and easier.
And so you're not crashing in esports racing at all,
Correct.
but was there like tactical timing, other, kind of non-physiological things you had to learn along the way? And then, yeah, I'll let Zach talk about it too. Like, were there things you had to coach him through with that?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I would say it's kind of been tricky because it depends on the platform that he's racing on and kind of how those dynamics might be changed over time. I mean, some platforms, they've updated their draft dynamics a couple times a year. So then you always have to adjust for that. Whereas I think, yeah, for Hayden as a rider, he has a pretty specific power profile where it's not ideal if he comes into a sprint with 10 or 20 guys. He almost always needs to break away, and usually solo is the best thing. Like if he can get that gap, it's almost impossible for people to claw him back, except for maybe a handful of the strongest riders in the world. So kind of figuring out how to make that happen, if it was possible, depending on the platform and depending on the course. Definitely a lot of coaching with that. And for a lot of the kind of the weekly and monthly races that he was targeting, I would go through, look at the course ahead of time, kind of analyze the start list and the requirements on maybe some of the climbs or other points where it might split on the course. And I would put notes into his TrainingPeaks plan about where the key points of the course were and what he should expect at that time. And then if I thought there was a chance for him to attack or break away at some point, I would definitely make a point to put that in the notes about if you're feeling good, like go here, because everyone's going to be so tired. Like at this point, there's a lot of courses. It was kind of like after a climb that I knew he could survive, if there was a 1 or 2% like slight downhill after that, if Hayden goes there and he gets 2 seconds, it's so hard for anyone to bring that back. So kind of looking for those moments on the different courses and talking through that. And then of course, post race, having that kind of analysis period of talking through what happened, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, what do we maybe want to try for next time, and kind of recycling that week over week and month after month. And then it doesn't always feel like that progress is there like in a 7-day period, but all of a sudden you look back in 6 months like, oh my god, I was getting 12th in these races and now I'm fighting for top 5 every single week.
And was learning that kind of stuff a chore, Hayden? Like, this is an annoying fiddly thing, I just want to ride hard, or was it like something you were embracing and fully into?
At first, it was a chore, and then now I'm starting to really actually like it a lot. And like at first, he used to give me like these like crazy game plans like the whole time. Like before every race, I'd read this like paragraph of what to do, and it worked. And then he'd also like sometimes watch my live streams or watch or fan view me, and then tell me what to do. And that's how I got my first like third place in a professional esports race. And in the beginning, like yeah, I got dropped first climb, like first race I did. I mean, it's a learning curve, and I'm now excited to learn like TrainingPeaks Virtual. I did my first race on it like 2 weeks ago ish, or like maybe it was last Thursday. And you have to like brake for corners now, and like all this stuff, and there's wind, and it's crazy. I'm starting to embrace it and like it, and I can't wait to ride on it more and learn how to use that.
Yeah, there's a frustration curve. This is personal experience. There's a frustration curve with TPV, with TrainingPeaks Virtual in the corners. Well, yeah, it'll break you hard if you don't coast through a corner, and I think that bites people for their first 20 minutes of racing till they figure it out. But makes it I think it makes it fun.
I think it's great. I think it's super tactical, and it allows for it to not just be like raw power to dominate all the time.
Yeah. So for people who aren't super familiar, what is like at the high level, what is kind of the format of pro racing? Is it all over the place, or has it gotten kind of consolidated? Like, are these all just scratch races, like race to the finish? Are there points races? Are there team time trials? Like, what are you guys mostly doing? Do you have to learn a bunch of stuff, or is it all kind of like pretty similar week to week?
The World Championship racing, those are all point based. So it's like 3 20-minute races pretty close together. And it's all very tactical on where you get your points. There's like sprint segments, there's double points for the finish line, stuff like that. Like it's all point based. But then on the weekly pro race that we do, that's a scratch race. So there are like KOM points and sprint points you can go for, but most people go for the overall finish. And those are like usually 55 to 60K.
So doing a little bit of math while you're at, 105% of threshold or higher, and max heart rate.
Yeah, it's tricky. You have to really, really plan it out. But it's good though, because you can lose and be the strongest guy. Like you can be tactically smart and definitely get a good result in point races.
So you talked about racing it's 3 races in a pretty short time, and I think track racers are familiar with that, but that's about the only, maybe BMX, if we really stretch it, is the only discipline that's super used to that. What kind of, is that something you have to approach deliberately? I guess for both of you, like, oh, we're racing multiple times a day and maybe at weird times a day because these are international races with people scattered all over.
Yeah, this was something that I've thought about a lot, and I feel like it varies a lot between athletes. Whereas someone like Hayden, I know he is very, very good at those repeatable efforts. So if it's a 1 hour scratch race versus an hour and a half block of 3 20-minute races with 5-10 minutes recovery in between each race, I know he is most likely going to be stronger than everyone in race number 3. Whereas race number 1, there's a lot of riders who they have that one super explosive world-class fresh effort, and then after that their performance just starts declining. So for those styles of races, they need to be really careful about when they use their matches and how they're recovering in between each race, because yeah, if it's a points race and there's 3 races, if they're scoring 0 in race 3, they're not going to win. Whereas someone like Hayden, if he can get top 5 in each stage, that's probably going to be the best outcome for him, because in a fresh effort, he's probably not going to be the best guy. But when everyone is fatigued after over an hour of racing, that's when he is at his best. So that's something that through coaching and racing myself, that's something that I found is pretty unique. It's definitely trainable with the different kinds of fatigued efforts that you can do in training. You can definitely improve that fatigue resistance, but I've also found it's pretty natural. Kind of those riders who can just jump on the bike, 10-minute zone one spin, and then they just smash out a 5-minute PB. Whereas someone like me, I need like 45-minute warm up of like just a slow build, maybe a little bit of an effort, maybe a little tempo spin, and then I'll feel good. If I do an effort 10 minutes into a ride, I feel awful every single time.
And then with that, you had talked about this last time a little bit, Zach, but I'll hear Hayden talk about it too. What were are there unique nutrition considerations, especially coming from your background? Were you eating too much? Did you have to eat differently? Things that I don't think until recently people have thought about with indoor racing, but food and hydration still matter.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's something I'm still learning to this day on how to really nail down, especially because they keep changing the weigh-in windows. Like it was like 2 hours, and then it was an hour and a half. And now it's like 45 minutes. So it's all changing. But for a while, I was doing like a lot before the race, like a big meal, and then now I've kind of started just to do like some simple sugars and basically a bottle of drink mix and some bicarb. But just it's all about just staying light for the weigh-in, really. Like, there's not too much you can change because I've tried to like cut and I bonk. Like, you can't lose weight if a kilogram really saves you 5 to 10 watts max, and is risking blowing up and having a horrible day. And I've learned that the hard way many times now. So now it is what it is. You wake up, you weigh in, have a normal breakfast, or by normal, I mean 100 grams of carbs in a bottle. That's the normal breakfast for esport racing. But yeah, so that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a lesson to all the aspiring esports athletes out there. Don't risk it. Race healthy.
Yeah.
This is kind of related. What is your practical setup with your indoor racing? Fans, windows, air conditioning, and then like, are you a stand and grind out the whole time in one hard gear? Are you shifting a lot? Like, if somebody's trying to wrap their head around like moving into esports, even just the nitty gritty, like how should my stuff be set up? It's going to be different for everybody, but kind of what's your setup and what has changed?
For me, I'm in the garage, and with Wisconsin, it gets very hot and very cold. So in the summertime, I have an AC unit set up, a dehumidifier, all that. Keep the garage closed all the time, and two giant barn fans, like they're huge. And then I have two more little fans around me, and that works well for the summertime. I can usually keep the garage around 65-ish Fahrenheit. And right now it's winter, so I took the AC. Well, it's fall, but I took the AC unit out, took out the dehumidifier, and now I just like have my same fans, but I open the garage doors and open the door in front of me, so I have like a direct airflow of the outside air cooling me off. And it's like 50 degrees typically when I race, so that works pretty well. For standing and stuff, I'm definitely a stander. If I'm going hard, I'm going to be standing. I actually did a race 2 weekends ago, and I did 500 watts for an hour, and I stood the entire time. I did not sit down like one time, and that's just how I like to ride, because I can use my weight and leverage the high torque on the pedals, and I tend to just feel better that way. And
So you still race outside. Is there a transition period if you're going back and forth, or are you going back and forth frequently enough that it's okay? Because I don't know about standing up for an hour outside even, or is that something you two have to work on deliberately if you're going to be based on upcoming races?
so I always ride outside at least a couple times a week. Typically, I'll do like my SRC, and then I'll go out for a 3-hour endurance ride. And I like, my power is definitely lower outside seated, but not like super drastically.
Mhm.
It's kind of weird. Like, so I'm not going to be like any short duration 600 700 watt effort I'll be doing outside. I can typically stand because it'll be up a hill, or I'll be like sprinting to close a gap. So that's fine. But like, I can't do 500 watts on a flat road outside. I can do closer to 460 for that duration, seated comfortably. So my power profile changes a little bit, but it's not like super drastic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think newer riders, um, they can see huge differences, and it can be frustrating for them. But I think with time, that gap can narrow across a lot of durations.
For sure. And I guess standing for an hour on the trainer just comes down to having a lot of core strength. Most people can't do that. Like it's definitely a skill you have to learn. And if you're just trying to sit on the trainer, your power is going to be probably worse. And if you're going to sprint on the trainer, it's going to be worse also. I found because you can't throw the bike around as much. I
So
think I could replicate my power standing on a climb outside very easily.
interesting. Are you getting that core strength from your job? Like, is that something you guys don't have to focus on as much, or is this a supplementary part that you're working on with Zach? Are you in the gym, or are you just at work hauling bags of granite or pebbles or whatever?
I do not lift any weights at all or do anything else. I just haul blocks, build retaining walls, raked out dirt all day. I mean, typically 12-hour work days, and it's very core based. So
Yeah.
just landscaping.
So that's the cheap training plan for athletes out there. If you can't afford a strength coach or a gym membership, just go get a job with Hayden.
Yes, I would add to that. I would say that Hayden is probably the strongest cyclist I've ever seen when it comes to core and upper body strength. Even though he doesn't go to a gym, he probably does more strength training than any other cyclist I know. I mean, he can do a one-arm push-ups. I'm pretty sure he can do multiple one-arm push-ups in a row, and that's with zero core specific training, zero specific gym training. That's just he just gets an immense amount of strength from all that landscape work. And he's 87 kilos. It's something that he hauls that around on the bike, and it works for him. I think that's another thing when it comes to standing for an hour at 500 watts. That's something that a normal cyclist cannot do. If you try to stand up and do your FTP for 10, 20 minutes, I know for me, my lower back usually goes out first, whether it's going to be your glutes or your arm strength or something else. That's something that it comes over time with a lot of training and like Hayden said, a lot of core strength.
So you're a big guy, you're a strong guy, you got a big aerobic engine, and you're from Wisconsin. How have you not ended up on Nordic skis yet? How are you not a Nordic ski racer?
So I have a pair. I like to do it on the off season, but I'm not very coordinated. Like that's like a big issue of mine. Like that's why I'm not like really good at outside racing too. I'm actually legally half blind. So I have a really bad cataract in this eye. And that's affected my ability to like play ball sports, really see well on the road. Like if Zach's beside me on the road on my right side, I have a hard time seeing him. And I just don't have the same coordination that I really should have.
So I guess that's a good thing about this like progression of, I mean, there's lots of good stuff about it, but this development of esports racing over the past 5 or 10 years is it's opened up a lot of doors to people that can't get the experience, bike handling outside, or they have impairments like that you can still get a lot of like high level racing, even if other things would be more difficult. So that's cool to hear. And hopefully that triggers the thought in some other people that maybe aren't confident racing mountain bikes or doing gravel races where there could be 300 people racing around them.
Yeah, I've tried a lot. I really tried hard at like getting my bike handling. I don't have it. I don't have the gift. I tried mountain biking. It's terrifying, and
You
yeah.
keep throwing around numbers like 600 and 700 watts. I think you've got some other gifts that will take you pretty far. So for both of you, what surprised you about switching to high level, like kind of esports racing from other things? Like what do you wish you'd known? Like what mistakes did you make that other people could learn from?
Biggest one for me was trying to lose weight and weight cutting. That was my biggest downfall. I was doing that a lot before I met Zach also. So like everyone wants a competitive edge and everyone wants to be able to like win. And you see like, oh, a weigh-in, it's all watt per kilo based. So like before I met Zach and I was doing like nationals, I was cutting 4 or 5 kilos and I would have maybe one good race and then I'd blow up half the time. And I kept trying to do that. And it didn't really like make sense to me until I really started working with Zach and he kind of like, he figured me out. Don't cut weight. That was my biggest lesson I learned over the years.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I would say for me, it is definitely learning the platform that you're racing on and fully understanding the drafting dynamics, the physics, the timing and positioning, because it is just amazing to me looking at results of pro races and everything. It is just amazing how many super strong riders can't get a good result, but they have the highest power, they have the highest watt per kilo every single time, but they always get dropped. They always get dropped on a descent or on the flat. They just get gapped a little bit and they can't close it. The drafting and those dynamics, just learning those across different platforms and across different race dynamics has helped so much because you can save so much power. Because someone like me competing against someone like Hayden, he has easily 120 watts on my FTP. There's no way I'm going to beat him straight up. But if I can figure out how to sit in his draft, how to follow his explosive efforts on climbs, and how to time the sprint at the end, you can win a lot of races not being the strongest guy in the race just from knowing those dynamics.
Yeah. So what's, I guess, at a personal athlete professional level, what's the future looking like? Like, what's the goal? Where there is for improvement? Like, where do you see yourself going in a couple of years? And then for Zach, how do you get there?
My overall goal is I want to win worlds. You know, that's like the pinnacle of esports is to win that. So this year I really want to be on the podium. That's my goal this year. Win nationals again. And basically next year or the year after, get on that top step and get the rainbow jersey. That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think when Hayden and I first started working together, there was a lot of the basics to get right first. So it was a very slow process of adding kind of these small things. So heat training is one of those things that I had known about for a while, but I didn't really try it with Hayden until this year. And it still is a work in progress. So I know there's still a couple of little things that we can try. Like I'm pretty sure I don't think I've ever tried altitude training with Hayden. So that's one of those things that it's still there if we do want to try it in the future. But at this point, just with getting the basics right and consistent training and racing over weeks and months, he just continues to improve. So at this point, there's no real reason to significantly change that part. I think maybe dialing in things like the bicarb, the heat training, the specific race preparation, those things we can kind of work on week to week. But in the long term, his power just keeps going up, which is amazing. I feel like it's going to hit a ceiling at some point, but it hasn't. So just keep going with that.
I'd
Nice.
like to add in that like recently also, like over the summer, I've changed these things, but I mean, the whole last year, I was still drinking like 2, 3 times a night, like 2, 3 drinks a night. I mean, like drinking all the time, more than an athlete should be drinking alcohol. Doing nicotine and like stuff like that, like very unhealthy habits that were not like athletes shouldn't be doing. I was doing, and those are some things that Zach has helped me quit and like learn that like those are really impacting me. And so those are 2 big ones also.
Yeah, I guess fundamentals still matter even at the highest level.
For sure.
And then what do you guys see with just the future of esports in general? It seems like a couple years ago, there's kind of a rough patch. It was a little bit of a wild west with performance verification, cheating, and it's kind of settled down quite a bit and feels like we're hitting a good stride with like consistent races, recognizable races. Where do you guys see it, the sport itself going in the next few years?
I'd say I really hope it continues to grow with the different racing and different options throughout the year. I think there's really solid calendars right now, but with it being so international, I would love to have kind of more racing year round. I know in the northern hemisphere summer, it kind of quiets down because I mean, obviously most of us are riding outside with road and gravel, but there are a lot of people that are just esport, or maybe their only racing is esport. So that period is a little bit quieter, and I think it's such a growing space. I would love to see more races, and I kind of like we talked about, I love the different race formats. I think I would love to see more of that. I like having the hour-long scratch races, but I also like the really short points races, and to see that to have a mix in there, to have some time trials, some team time trials, and then some more stage races. There haven't been many stage races, especially at kind of that pro level of esport. Maybe maybe there's only a handful a year. I would love to see more of those because I think everyone thinks of esport as very short, very explosive races. So when you take that style and you make it 4 or 5 days in a row, it requires a very different skill set. And that's something that is super unique and I don't really see a lot. So I'd love to see more of that too.
I want to see more in-person events personally.
Oh,
Like I want to see USA Nationals be in person at a location, and Worlds is a great direction. But I think any high level esport event that's going to have a good payout, I think needs to be in person, and that's what I think needs to happen for the future.
get everybody in an arena and get an audience.
Yes.
Nice. All right, I'm going to throw out a quick controversy question because we want engagement in the comments. We want people to argue. ERG mode or no ERG mode?
I'll start with this one. I would say anything under zone 6 is ERG mode on. But like sprints, no way. I've tried sprints on ERG mode. They're awful. Don't do sprints on ERG mode. Anything else, if you have a good trainer that's good on ERG mode, I usually use ERG mode.
Interesting. And
No,
Hayden,
no ERG mode.
No ERG mode? Oh,
no, absolutely not. Just because I used to use it a lot, okay? But I dual record every ride, and I use an SRM PM9, which I believe is the gold standard of power. It's amazing. And what I've learned is that the trainers read like crap on ERG mode. Almost all of them. They're not good. And also, like, you got to learn the gears and everything. And I like personally, I like how it feels without ERG mode. And it makes you push through it more and like learn different cadences. And I don't know. I just think that you're better off without ERG mode personally. But
interesting. Yeah, that'll start a few fights, but hopefully that's a coach athlete argument. It sounds like you guys have smoothed over and decided to agree to disagree on.
I used to do everything at ERG mode, but I think that the training is not as good, especially with like 30-30s, because there's like a 10-second delay on the power going up to the target power, and that can give you like a false break. And it can be easier than if you're just going immediately to 700 watts. So like what I do now is I have everything on instant power and no ERG mode, so I can see that power immediately.
Oh, fully engaged. And then for the second most important question in indoor training for easier rides, let's say an endurance ride or just a free ride, looking at the virtual world or watching a movie?
Oh, definitely watching a movie for me.
Not for me. Nope. I always have to be on the game. I could not watch movies.
Man, fully engaged. A lot of coaches could be so lucky to have an athlete paying this close of attention to what they're doing all the time.
Fully engaged with the same song on a loop for an hour. That's the way I do it.
Oh, what song? Are we allowed to know?
Yeah, lately it's been Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift. But that whole album, her new album, Life of a Showgirl, I've probably listened to that album 500 times since it came out. Like I like the album, so I'll just like put it on a loop for every training ride, you know?
All right, so disregard everything else we said about specific workouts and nutrition. Taylor Swift on loop is the key to esports success.
Right there, yep.
I can't think of any better way to end on that unless you guys have anything else. Anything else? Advice for coaches, advice for athletes, anything else you'd want people to know about getting into esports, racing at an amateur level, progressing if you're at an amateur level and want to go up again? We've covered a lot, but if you have anything you wish I'd asked or wish you'd had a chance to talk about.
I would say from my perspective as a coach, it seems super basic, but talk to your athletes. Communication is so important. It's like the number of times I've seen a coach athlete relationship either not work or completely fall apart. It's just because one side wasn't communicating with the other. And there was just this mysterious resentment that existed on one side, but didn't exist on the other because they didn't talk about it. And then all of a sudden the whole relationship just fizzles apart. It's just, there's so many things that happen in an athlete's life and with their mindset. And if they have a job and kids and everything, there's so much happening where you can't just give them a hard workout, expect them to complete it, and then just look at the file and assume that's it. There's so much more that goes into that. So if you really want to help them and help them improve, you just have to communicate. And I think It seems super basic, but I think it's so underrated, that skill as a coach.
I really agree with that because I mean, probably a nightmare to coach because I'm having Zach change my workouts all the time. If I like don't feel good or feel good or like just what I'm thinking, we're always in contact. And
Speaking from a coach perspective, having an athlete tell you what they want or need to change workouts is definitely better than the alternative. An athlete just going radio silent and skipping workouts or doing them when they shouldn't be. So I think you're on the right track. So I think we've got the plan for everybody out there. Start building retaining walls. Luke Taylor Swift.
Yep.
And and that's it.
Ride your bike hard.
Yeah, ride hard, like Taylor Swift, build retaining walls, pay attention to what you're doing, and you'll be on your way. So thanks, guys. Thanks for all the tips, insight, and musical recommendations.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Endurance Unlimited. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on your platform of choice to never miss new episodes. Also, be sure to leave a 5-star rating to let your coach and the algorithm know you're ready to dial in your training. Find more resources to help you take on your next challenge at TrainingPeaks.com or find us on social media at TrainingPeaks. Got questions? Leave a comment or send an email to podcast@TrainingPeaks.com. Good luck in whatever you're training for and trust the process to reach your potential.